Yeah, first of all, when we went to the prequel, the one thing that we didn't want to do is get so caught up in ourselves and so caught up in the fiction that we took away fun. So rule number one was, let's make sure it's fun, even if it means we're going to break fiction. So things like we introduced new weapons and new enemies, you sort of would assume that those would have been in the original trilogy. But it wouldn't have really made a lot of sense for us not to introduce anything new, just because it was a prequel. And so we chose to break fiction when it made sense in the name of fun, as opposed to just breaking fiction for the sake of trying to write a story. As long as it made the game more fun, then we would go that route. I don't feel like anything that we did in the original trilogy really constrained us in a way to the game's detriment. Luckily, it was pretty open-ended, and we were in a time period that we never fleshed out all that much. That we had quite a bit of liberty in what we could do and where we could go. Really, the only kind of handcuff was, are we introducing things that haven't existed yet? And like I said, in that particular case, it was, well, if it makes the game more fun, then who cares? Let's break our own fiction.
Yeah.
Well, I think you got to find what he was at his core, and at his core, he's kind of he's sort of the everyman's guy, right? You feel like he could be anyone's friend because he's sort of adaptable. Now, the big difference here in Judgment was he was the officer, he's the leader of the team. He has to have, some bit of authority that he is purposely, sort of spiting in the original trilogy. He's come to kind of not respect authority in a way. And you kind of find out why as you play through Judgment. You find out, at the start of the game he's an officer, at the end of the game he's not anymore. And the events of Judgment tell why that happened. And that tells that story because he's not an officer in the original trilogy. We want to kind of explain that. But it was really about making sure we keep some of that humor, a little bit of that individualism, that sort of disregard for authority, but not totally, because he's still trying to do the right thing. He's still an officer. He wants to obey orders, but he ultimately wants to save people. And you'll see this common thread through Barrett. One, he has a lot of good humor, and two, he's really trying to do good, and he's really trying to help people. Especially in the books, we really fleshed that out quite a bit in the books. He's really kind of a humanitarian that you don't expect. And so I think that's what I think that element really kind of endears him to a lot of people. Yeah, that's something that Tom Bissell brings to the table. So Tom Bissell, our writer, we brought him in new for this game. We had done some work with him in the past on some side pieces, never directly for the game. And one thing that he talks about that he really likes about the game is these stark contrasts. You have these heavy assault guns, but then most of the combat's up close. And, this sort of yin and yang, this black and white. And so when they looked at the dynamics of the squad, that was something he wanted to carry forward. And so you have the friends in Cole and Baird, but you have a younger, more reserved Cole. You have the leader Baird, who has a different responsibility on his shoulder. And then you have two new characters. We have Paddock, who is this old, grizzled veteran of the UIR who fought the COG, back in the Pendulum Wars, and then he came over and joined the COG when that war ended, and the Locust rose up. And then you have Sophia, who is an Onyx Guard cadet. So the Onyx Guard are like the special forces of the COG, and she's still learning to become one. So she's really young and idealistic and kind of pure. And that's in really stark contrast to Paddock, who's old and grizzled and just doesn't care anymore, right? He's been beat down, from war his whole life. He just wants to live, and he just kind of wants to get through things, and he could care less what his orders are. And so it really adds a lot of really cool group dynamics to have all these different personalities. But the writers did such a good job in kind of fleshing them together that you kind of pull for them in the end, and you pull for them as a group, as they're sort of defying authority and kind of trying to do what's right.